good evening. It's good to see you. Hello and welcome to I'm Your Focus Hypnosis page, and tonight I'm going to be your guide on a fairy tale adventure. It's time to go to sleep, and so that's what I'm here for. I'm all in my Dalmatian onesie, and I am ready to tell you a story, a sleep story. So I hope you're all cuddly and cozy, all tucked in bed, so that you can go to sleep all the way down from the very top of awareness and awakeness, all the way down to the very bottom of very deep sleep. Delta deep sleep story for you. And I think it's going to be nice just letting yourself drift off into dreamland. Our Mrs. Yeti is ready to go to sleep. She's in her pajamas too. She's always in her pajamas. So, without further ado, shall we start? I think we shall. Let's do this. It's going to be a story that you've heard before, but it'll be really boring, so you can go to sleep. Now, don't mind me. If you want to just fall asleep, just turn your phone over so that the screen is not on or shining up, and just listen to my voice. This is going to be a very relaxing journey. Let's start it, shall we? So, it's going to be a soothing sleep story, and I'm going to be your guide on a fairy tale adventure that you might have heard before. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the story of Pinocchio. But before we begin, it's important that you settle into bed and be as relaxed as possible. Let's start by taking some long, deep breaths. Inhale and exhale. Any stress of the day, any complication, or anything that's crowding into your mind, just let it go as you breathe in and out. Don't let it into this moment. There will be other times to handle those days. So we're going to inhale any stress of the day, any complicated thoughts, anything that is crowding your mind at this moment. Let everything go as you breathe in and out, feeling your stomach expand at the exhale, and inhale and return on the exhale. Once upon a time, in Italy, a long time ago, there lived an old man named Geppetto. He was a clockmaker who spent all day long working on his little clocks. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. The monotonous sound of his clocks ticking. Chip, 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 chip. Hello, and welcome to Soothing Sleep Stories, the soothing siren song sleep stories. I'm Tanya Scott, and I will be your guide on your fairy tale adventure, on a fairy tale that you might have heard before. And tonight I'm going to tell you the story of Pinocchio. But before we begin, it's important that you settle into bed and be as relaxed as possible. Let's start by taking some long, deep breaths. Inhale and exhale. any stress of the day, any complicated thoughts, anything that is crowding your mind at this moment. Let everything go as you breathe in and out, feeling your stomach expand on the inhale and return on the exhale. Once upon a time in Italy, a long time ago, there lived an old man named Geppetto. He was a clockmaker who spent all day long working on his wooden clocks. Tick, tock, tick, tick, tock, tick, 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 tock. The monotonous sound of his clocks ticking was a wonderful sound to old Geppetto. They chimed at the same time, but the church bells rang out, and he loved to hear them all making sweet music. Some nights, when his clocks would tick, Geppetto liked to imagine that he had a lot of children who would dance along to the ticking, talking of the music. But alas, Geppetto was old and unmarried, and never had any sons or daughters of his own. It was a sad thought indeed. Some days Geppetto would watch from his window shop as happy couples strolled the cobblestone streets, holding their children's hands or chasing after them. And Geppetto wished he could be as happy as they were. If only he had a boy to call his own. So one day, Geppetto took a block of wood and carved out the shape of a boy's face. Next, he carved his body, arms and legs. Then he sewed a shirt, a colorful pair of trousers for the little boy. "I will call you Pinocchio," said Geppetto to the little wooden boy. He placed it on the shelf and retired for the night. But before he could close his eyes, Geppetto looked outside the window. He noticed that the night sky was as pitch black as could be, and all the twinkling stars shone even brighter against the darkness. This gave him an idea. "I will make a wish to the brightest star in the sky," he whispered. "I wish for a boy of my own." And after saying these words, he settled his head on his pillow, pulled his blankets up over his shoulders, letting his drooping eyelids fall shut, and drifted off into sleep. Nobody but a tiny cricket, who had managed to hop onto a windowsill just as he was settling down for the night. There was a shiny, bright star swooped down from the sky and flew right into the window. Suddenly, it morphed into a beautiful woman with wings, a blue fairy. She looked very serene, with cascading long hair, the comforting smile, and starry eyes. She passed Geppetto, who was fast asleep, and swooped on over to the little wooden puppet. "Hello, little wood puppet," she beamed. "When morning dawns, you shall be walking and talking. You shall be almost like a real boy." The next second, Pinocchio's eyes opened. Then, just as magically as she appeared, the fairy was gone. When Geppetto woke up the next morning, He went to go look for his latest creation, but the wooden puppet was not where he'd left it. "Here I am, Father," called the child's voice. Geppetto turned to see the wooden puppet had been magically transformed. He stood with his mouth open in surprise. He cleaned his glasses once, twice, and then blinked. Was he dreaming? "Am I dreaming?" he said aloud, for this all seemed like a wonderful dream. Hadn't he just made a wish? But how could it be? But it was true, and it was really happening right before his eyes. "Hello, Father," said the little puppet. "My boy," proud Geppetto. "You are my boy." Geppetto decided that he was now his father, and as a good father, he shall ensure that his child receives the best education. And so he proceeded to prepare Pinocchio for school. He found a backpack, some notepads and some pencils, and a lunchbox. After the whole afternoon preparing and making calls for the town schools to ask if there was a place for one more boy, Geppetto felt excited. The next day, he fed Pinocchio breakfast, a cup of milk, and a butter croissant. Then he tied up Pinocchio's shoelaces, showed him which way to walk to school, and then said goodbye. Pinocchio was also excited for school. He skipped off merrily, feeling warm under the warm morning sun. He was in a great mood to learn and meet other children. But who do you suppose would be passing by just then? A fox and a cat. Now, this fox and cat were not like an ordinary fox or cat. They were sly, cunning, and quite naughty. And they wanted to find other naughty creatures to hang out with. And the fox and the cat spied this wooden puppet walking to school all happily. They thought how strange it was, but then they were walking and talking animals, so perhaps it was not so strange at all. Pinocchio hummed a tune to himself and to the cricket, who was now sitting on his shoulder. They had gotten to know each other and now were best of friends. The fox and the cat approached them. "It's such a lovely day, isn't it?" said the fox. "Where are you off to?" "To school," replied Pinocchio. "I'm going to school." "Well, isn't that nice?" "But you know what is nicer," said the cat. "The fair, and that is we are going. Would you like to come with us?" "Fair? What's a fair?" asked Pinocchio. He had never heard of a fair before. "A fair is a magical place," said the fox, "and you can learn lots of things there. School is boring. You have to sit still for hours. At the fair, you're free to run around and find adventure." Pinocchio thought this was a pretty nice idea. The fair must be a wonderful place. "Do other children go to the fair?" he asked the two sly animals. "Other real boys?" "Yes, of course. Why?" "Yes," said the fox. "Pinocchio," said the cricket, "don't listen to these stranger animals. Your father told you to go to school and nowhere else." but the fair sounded just like the place for a wooden puppet to explore and to learn about life. "Please, take me to the fair," he begged. And the cat and the fox said, "Your wish is my command." And then Pinocchio followed the two stranger animals on down the street in the opposite direction of school. The cricket was not happy. He felt an obligation to look after Geppetto's puppet. After all, no one but him had seen the magical twinkling star as it turned into a beautiful fairy and granted the old man's wish. The fair was grand, colorful, and very noisy. Pinocchio looked around in amazement. There were spinning wheels and rides and prizes. There were games and shows with dancing figures and costume. There was sweet smelling popcorn and pot cotton candy and ice cream. And Pinocchio had never seen or smelled or tasted such wonderful things in his entire life. He wanted to try it all. Pinocchio walked over to the big stage where a bunch of people were watching and crawled onto the stage where a few large marionettes playing. They were wooden puppets just like himself. Pinocchio smiled and walked a little closer to inspect the wooden figurines. Could they be his real family? No. Pinocchio stopped. Pinocchio stopped, called the cricket. He realized that this could only lead to trouble. But he was too late. Pinocchio was already climbing onto the stage and joining in the dance. "I am a puppet just like them," shouted Pinocchio, flopping his arms and legs. Then someone from the audience called out, "Look at that boy puppet. It has no strings." "It's true," said another voice. Also from the audience going, "There's no strings, indeed. How about that?" The surprise of the audience turned into happiness and laughter. Pinocchio suddenly discovered he liked making people smile. The same people threw money at him on stage, real silver coins. Pinocchio threw his hands up and continued to dance. He was about to gather up the coins when a large, husky fellow came up behind him. "This puppet with no strings is an amazing creation," he laughed out loud. His eyes gleamed as if to say, "And this puppet will make me rich." Pinocchio heard the man speak and thought that it was a good thing. He wanted to help the man, or so he thought. But before he could even speak, he was roughly picked up, and before he could gasp, Pinocchio was thrown backstage into a metal cage. Its bars were cold and hard. There was a lock on the door, so he could not escape. Suddenly, Pinocchio felt very alone, very lonely. He wanted to get out. "Oh, now, I can't get out. I am stuck in this cold place," Pinocchio sobbed. "Well," he said it very sadly, for up until this time, Pinocchio could not shed any real tears. Wood does not have water for tears, only sap. And you would agree with me that it's much thicker than sap, and probably not a good tearful substance. But back to our story. Pinocchio was very sad and very cold and very lonely indeed. There's no one else in the cage except for the talking cricket. Pinocchio thought he would like to ask the cricket about his father. "What do you think my father is doing?" he asked. "Is he hungry, with no one to comfort him? Or no one to cook for him? A hot stew? Does he miss me? Is he pacing up and down the floors of our house, wondering what has happened to me? Oh, we must not let him find out what has happened." As Pinocchio's blubbering to himself, the night grew darker. And as the night grew darker, the stars began to twinkle and dance once more. We're wondering what had happened the last time. The talking cricket gazed out the window, hopefully, and then they saw it. The same bright star. It danced and danced and danced, as if dancing to some kind of invisible, calming, soft and tranquil music. And then, swoop, the star flew right into the window of his new master room and stood directly in front of Pinocchio. Changed into the blue fairy, of course. This time, it was Pinocchio that wondered aloud if he was dreaming. He rubbed his painted wooden eyes. He stood his wooden body straight up, as straight as possible. He peered through the birdcage he was locked up in. The light from the stars seemed to be morphing into the shape of a tall woman. And then, poof, she was standing right in front of him. A beautiful blue fairy. "Oh my, Pinocchio," said the fairy. "Now, how did you get in here?" Pinocchio did not know she was speaking to him, but the light from her body shone so warm and kind. It felt good, and the room was also a little less dark. But at the same time, Pinocchio had this sad feeling, like he was here in the cage because he did something that he was not supposed to do. This feeling of guilt was something Pinocchio had never felt before. It is strange, he thought. He did not feel the sad feeling when he was talking with the fox and the cat, nor when he was on stage with the audience, throwing coins his way. Only now, when he remembered his father Geppetto, he indeed felt the light from this beautiful lady shining. It was like he felt embarrassed to be so bad in the presence of something so good. As he was having these new thoughts, he heard the fairy ask him once more, "How did you get in here?" As he was having guilty feelings, he decided that telling what really happened would make him feel even worse, even more sad. So, what do you think Pinocchio said? Well, he decided to make up a story. "Oh dear, you would not believe it," he answered. "Oh, do tell me what happened," said the fairy. The cricket was also all ears now. He was the only witness to Pinocchio's strange day. Of course, he could vouch for him. Well, Pinocchio began, I was robbed. Really now, said the fairy. She frowned in disbelief. Yes, said the wooden puppet, and in that instant, Pinocchio's wooden nose began to grow. I was robbed on the street by two big, mean men. Suddenly, the wooden nose grew another 2 inches. Those 4 big, mean men took all of my school books, and then his nose grew another 2 inches. Oh, that's terrible, answered the fairy. The cricket hid his face because he knew that Pinocchio was not telling the truth. And then what happened? Asked the fairy gently. Well, then after they took all my school books, said Pinocchio, they dragged me here and threw me into this bird cage. And then they locked the door. His nose grew and grew until it blocked his entire view. He grew straight out of his cage. And if Pinocchio felt embarrassed before, well, this was so much more refined. Oh, my nose! It is so big! Pinocchio cried. Help! What is happening? Pinocchio, said the fairy. Are you finished with your story? She said. Pinocchio looked down and began to cry. I guess it was not the true story, he sobbed. His nose suddenly 1 inch shorter. The wooden bit retracting back into his wooden face. But surely you do know the truth, spoke the fairy. I guess so, said Pinocchio. I heard about this amazing fair, and who told you about this amazing fair, she said. And he said it was a fox and a cat. His nose began to shrink even more. It felt much better to tell the truth. I really wanted to go to the amazing fair, so I sold my school books to pay for the fair tickets. The nose got even shorter. I started to sing and dance on this brightly lit stage. Everyone seemed lovely then, and it was wonderful. Oh, I'm so sorry. I guess I was just confused. I didn't think I was never going to go back home. I just wanted to have a peek at the amazing fair and see what it was like. He started weeping and weeping, and then someone threw me in this birdcage, and that's the truth. It's exactly how I got in here. But then the little wooden puppet's wooden nose was the right size. And then the cricket said, "Good job, Pinocchio. I'm proud of you for saying the truth." And the fairy said, my job is to get you out of here. I'm here to rescue you. And Pinocchio said, "Rescue me?" And she said, "Yes." And he said, thank you, I'll never say a lie again." The fairy smiled, waved her magic wand, and then disappeared. And at the same instant, the lock of the cage fell off, and Pinocchio was free. And then he heard her say in the air, "You must return to your father. Follow this cricket, because he shall lead you home." And then she just kept going with her mother-like calming, soothing voice. So she just kept continuing. She was gentle, mother-like. You have been giving a wonderful home and a view with someone who loves you dearly, and somebody who's waiting for you at this moment, where you can return without getting sidetracked. Your father will take you back and forgive you for getting distracted. Distracted on your first day of school, but after this, you must take care to respect and to love him just like he loves and respects you. Pinocchio nodded his head in obedience. The cricket hopped on his shoulder and nodded his head too. Forgiveness is a beautiful thing, Pinocchio, said the fairy. It is a gift given by those whose hearts are full of love and compassion. Those like good old Geppetto. But you must remember to not abuse the love of those who give it to you. I won't, said Pinocchio. I promise. Now, Pinocchio, said the fairy, you don't have to promise. Promises are also very hard to keep. And I do not expect you to never make a mistake, or never to get distracted, or never tell another lie ever again. But you can try your very, very best. Then I promise to try my very, very best, said Pinocchio. Good boy, whispered the blue fairy. She opened the door and pointed the way to the dimly lit path. Then she flapped her wings and became a tiny blue light once more. Like a shooting star, the light shot out of the window and began floating above the path. Pinocchio looked at the light, and the cricket looked at the light. I guess we're supposed to follow her, said the little wooden puppet, putting the one foot in front of the other. He started to walk, a little wobbly at first, and then faster and faster, following the light. The light continued to flit and flat over hills and streams, through one dark forest, and beyond other hills. The light did not stop, and Pinocchio did not stop. He did not feel afraid as he was. He did not feel alone. He felt as if a friend were walking right alongside of him. And every once in a while, he would look down at his shoulders, see the cricket sitting there, smiling up at him, and he would feel happy and strong. Pinocchio walked all night long, until finally he reached the street that he seemed to recognize. On that street was a familiar house with a familiar door, and in one window the flickering glow of a melting candle could be seen. He went straight to the door and knocked. And as he knocked, the light of the fairy disappeared. Swoosh! Just as instantly and magically as she appeared, she was gone. Knock, 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 knock. He tried again, rapping his wooden fist on the heavy beam. After the third knock, the door swung open, and there, the friendliest creature he knew, his father, was standing with arms wide open and a smile on his face. Hello, 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 Father, said the little wooden puppet. My boy, cried Geppetto, you're home. My boy, my boy. Yes, Father, said Pinocchio, I'm home. And I hope you did not miss me too much. Pinocchio hugged his father, and his father picked him up and gave him an even bigger hug. He swung him around and closed the door softly, and then brought him to the dining room and sat him down on the chair. I did not know that a school day was so long, Geppetto said, looking at the clock, for it was nearly midnight. I must tell you the truth, Father, said Pinocchio, as Geppetto brought a bowl of hot soup to the table and some bread. I wanted to go to school, but then I got distracted and ended up at a fair. It was not so amazing as I thought it was going to be, said Pinocchio. The father listened, and as Pinocchio told his whole truth and nothing but the truth, he listened until Pinocchio had run out of words, run out of things to say. He listened until he realized that being a parent was so much more than just making handsome clothes for his son and sending him off to a school. As Geppetto listened, he realized that being a father would take a lot of work, a lot of forgiveness, and a lot of love. But he had time to give his only son all of this. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. Then gone, gone, gone. All the clocks in Geppetto's shop all came chiming the night hour. They all started making sweet music. All the clocks rang out. Oh, Pinocchio, said Geppetto, thank you for telling me the truth. I love you, and I forgive you, and I hope you will never get this distracted from your school day again. Now, let's dance. With one swoop, he lifted Pinocchio off of his stool and set him straight on his feet. Oh yes, I love to dance, said the little wooden boy. And as he danced with his father, he realized that he did not need to be on a stage with an audience clapping, for he could dance whenever he felt like it. Clocks would always be able to make music, and he would always have time enough to dance with the person who cared about him the most. After they had danced, they had settled into bed for the night, and once more Geppetto pulled the warm and cozy covers over his son. He looked out the window. All was dark except for the twinkling stars. And he said a silent thank you to the star who brought his son home. He relaxed, thinking about how tonight he had the greatest gift in the world, a little more time with the one he truly loved. Then he lay down beside his boy, closed his eyes, and fell into a deep, deep sleep. I hope you enjoy that sleep. I do hope that you enjoyed this simple story of a wooden puppet named Pinocchio. And I hope you do come back tomorrow for another hypnosis, sleep story, lullaby, whatever video. So until next time, have a wonderful sleep and a wonderful way to wake up in the next day. Good night.